Hello again, everybody. A good Wednesday evening to you. I am Greg Blanchard, and we welcome you to a special Facebook Live broadcast this evening where we will be joined in a moment by a couple of special guests to update us on the status of the potential return of live racing to the province of Ontario. Jim Lawson of the Woodbine Entertainment Group and Bill O'Donnell, president of COSA, are going to join me next, and it's all coming up in a moment here on COSA TV. Hi, and welcome to the show. Again, Greg Blanchard. Great to have you joining us here tonight. And a big thank you to our special guests getting ready to join me in a moment. Bill O'Donnell from COSA, Jim Lawson, the CEO of the Woodbine Entertainment Group, and of course, both with Ontario Racing as well. Wonderful to have them on board. Just before we start tonight, we have a poll question that we want to pass your way. And we'd love to have your say here this evening. As we're starting to get some more positive signs from the government of Ontario, how likely do you think it is that racing will return here in the province in the month of June? Is it very likely? Is it a 50-50 proposition or not likely? And we will recap that poll question at the end of the night and see the results. Have your say. We'd love to hear from you. Just leave us your answer in the comment section. And if you have a question for either of our guests tonight, we would be happy to take those as well. And we'll try and get to some of those throughout the course of the evening. Again, a big welcome to these gentlemen, two of the busiest guys, certainly in the industry in recent weeks, and a lot happening. And we'll start with you, Jim. How are you doing? The last time we talked, there was so much uncertainty. I'm not sure how much more certainty there is at this point, but it looks like there is some reason for optimism.
Well, there's certainly more certainty in that we've been able to spend this downtime to advance our planning. I will say I was chuckling at your poll question. I don't know whether people have to answer the poll before we have to hear what we have to say. I answer that question about 4 or 5 times a day. Sure. But I will say that there's light at the end of the tunnel. We've always felt that way. We just didn't know how long the tunnel would be. We're currently, as we've said, I've said quite openly, we're hoping to resume live racing in June, and that's still the plan. So, and we're putting detailed plans in place to help ensure that happens, Greg.
And Billy, on your end, I know you've been quite busy. The reallocation of purse money has been a big thing, and obviously was welcome news for horse people in the province. How busy has it been for you and your team trying to get that money processed?
Very, very busy, Greg. It's Kathy and I are here at home. We're processing, a lot of the applications, and Allison and Sarah and Catherine and Medea, Ian Fleming, we're kind of all doing that, and it's hard because we're in all different locations, but we've got it done. We met Sunday at the COSA office for a few hours and kind of tied everything together, and we sent a note today at 4:30. There's 2,938 applications that went in, so now it's just what the next steps are. It has to go to OLG. They've been approved from this end. It's entirely up to them then what they do. And then Medea can start sending out checks as soon as you get the stamp of approval from them.
And Jim, when you consider how quickly things had to move, the amount of horse people you're dealing with, it's fairly impressive how quickly and how smoothly all things have gone, all things considered.
Yeah, listen, I just following up on what Bill said. These people, Bill and the group and the people at Ontario Racing Management have really rolled up their sleeves. And people in this industry for all breeds deserve, or these people deserve a big thank you for what they've done. They have processed, as Bill said, they've processed 3,000 applications. There was the original tranche that they processed for horses that had qualified at the end of March, and things are running smoothly. COSA's had to validate every single application, and that's a lot of work. And now it's processing, as Bill said. But these people have done a lot. There's $2.6 million that they've had to validate, and it's exceptional the way the industry has come together. And Bill will attest to this too. I sat in on the Ontario Racing Board meetings when these things were all approved, and the approach to it, and it was really heartwarming after all the years that Billy and I spent in industry associations, to see how everyone's come together and cooperated during this period, and people have worked hard and appreciated it. So, big thank you to COSA and to Ontario Racing Management for helping everyone out in this period. It's been important, and it's really been appreciated.
And Jim, you were quoted a couple of days ago, a good article in the Toronto Star, and you talked about that optimism that you have, that we can see racing in some form, certainly in the month of June, but obviously it's still dependent on the government and the health authorities and when they give the green light. Today, or yesterday, I believe it was, Doug Ford, the Premier, put back the emergency status another week to the 19th of May now. Does that change anything at all?
Well, yes, it does. I'm hoping it doesn't delay us, but no question, we were all looking forward to seeing restrictions being eased on May the 12th, which was the original expiration date. Now, having said that, and it was this morning, because I woke up and immediately got an email and saying, "What do I have to deal with today?" And that was the latest. But to put it in a positive light, we've seen even as of today, on the date that the declaration of emergency was extended to May the 19th, the provincial government has eased restrictions, as you've seen, on hardware stores and garden centers and the like. And so it doesn't necessarily mean now that we have to wait till May the 19th until we see restrictions being eased. I think the provincial government has done a great job. They're being responsible, they're being prudent, and they will take steps forward to open up the economy in accordance with the guidance they're getting from the health authorities. And so the reason I say it pushes things back to some extent is the idea of essential businesses, and we're doing our very best to ensure that live racing is an activity that is necessary and provides the livelihood in this province for 20,000 people plus. And we have shown, both through live racing at Mohawk and operating the backstretch at Woodbine for 2 months now, that we can operate in a safe environment. And so we want to, I'm being quite outspoken about it, Greg, in talking to government and working with the AGCO and working with COSA and working with the HPPA to everyone get behind this. And I think we are a business that can move ahead in June. We're not talking about next week. We're not talking about the following week. We're talking about doing this right, making sure the government understands the protocols. We're working with medical consultants to ensure that they have blessed our protocols, and we're working with government. So I think we're still on a good path. We're doing the detailed planning. And everyone would like to see this move ahead quicker, but with the planning we have in place, I just want to thank everyone for being patient and understanding, because there's, we all want racing to start as soon as we can, and we're all doing our best, and we're taking a lot of steps behind the scenes in developing protocols, developing procedures, working with AGCO, working with each of the racetracks in the province, to make sure that we have everything in line and lined up, and have a blessing, as I said, from the AGCO, and hopefully we'll get underway in June, which is the plan.
And maybe I'll pick up on that with Bill. obviously, you guys had some time operating under stringent protocols and have had time now to put a more comprehensive plan in place. Flamborough, Western Fair, obviously, we're in the same boat. But Bill, now as other summer tracks get set to come online, we heard earlier today that Clinton has had to delay their opening from May 17th, obviously, with the deadline now moving back to May 19th. Just in terms of those other tracks, Jim alluded to the fact that they are going to have to put protocols in place. What's the process been like in working with those tracks and trying to get them up to speed as to what would be required?
Well, actually, it was all going through Catherine at OR. She informed me this morning that every racetrack as of today has put in a proposal and they want to race. What the protocols will be coming from the other end, from municipalities and the provincial government, and are they able to do that? And if the racing gets started late and cuts into some of the tracks that only race short races, like short days, is it going to be viable for them to do it? And that's a decision for them, I guess. So far, I mean, they want to race. It depends on when it's going to start, I think.
Yeah.
And will that affect
Bill? Sorry, go ahead, Greg.
No, you go ahead, Jeff.
I was just going to add to that the process here, I mean, ultimately there's a committee of the government that is looking at opening up businesses. And a lot of that is Minister Phillips is in charge of that process, or is chairing that committee, as I understand it. And there's a group of ministers that are involved. And for our industry to move forward, we do need the support of the AGCO. I think as our regulator and the party that sets the rules of racing, including physical distancing protocols that will by definition tie into the rules of racing and how we're doing things, and items which we'll address, such as qualifiers. We need the AGCO to get on side, and we need the AGCO to work with us cooperatively on the protocols. So what Ontario Racing is looking for, Greg, is to have the protocols and procedures into them by the end of the day tomorrow, and Bill may shed some light on whether they're all in or not. But the idea is we will then work with OLG and the AGCO to present a package, empirical evidence, medical testimony to our procedures and protocols, evidence of experience in the United States that for racetracks that are currently running, and we will assemble that entire package. That's why it's important to get each racetrack to put in their protocols and procedures, so we can have a comprehensive package to government with the blessing of the AGCO and move ahead in that fashion. So that's why it's so important for everyone to work together and share ideas. I mean, these no one should be starting their protocols and procedures from scratch, and I'm sure they're not. ORM, with COSA's help, has been steering that process, and it's important that the protocols and procedures are consistent and aligned with each other, because every racetrack is different, but they should all be within certain guidelines and physical distancing guidelines. So I think it's been a good process, and the next step is to put it in a package to government to ensure that they know that we've taken the right steps.
And maybe both of you can comment on this as well. With no live racing the last couple of months, and again, tracks starting or getting ready to start up, who really base their product and their wagering on live attendance and live numbers, and the prospect of racing with no fans in the seats at some of these venues. What impact do you anticipate that having on, say, the SIP program looking ahead? Billy, maybe start with you on that.
With me?
Sure.
Yeah. I think we've had one meeting about the HIP program or the Standard one, and we're losing handles. That's where that money comes from handle commissions, right, or handles. So we're losing that. So we've lost a couple of months, but I think, in my opinion, that if we get up racing in June before some of the other tracks, our $2 million handle on Saturday night could be 6 or 7. Hopefully it is. So if we could do that for 3 weeks or a month, then we could almost recoup what we've lost, hopefully, and we won't have to make any adjustments in the schedule. And if the schedule has to go longer into the year, I don't think that was a little bit of a concern too. I'm speaking as a horseman. If the super finals go Christmas Eve, we'll all be there to race in them. It doesn't make any difference to us. And our meet goes year round. So, if we have enough time to get them all in, it'll be great. And I think we will. So that's as far as we got with that. And it's a fear. And you hate to look at those figures every time that we come to a meeting, but they're there.
And Jim, Bill touched on the rescheduling issue, the stakes program. If we were able to start in early June, a best case scenario, the impact not nearly as bad as it could have been. But how do you reconcile what might happen with the stakes program? Obviously, at Woodbine, you've had to postpone your two biggest races, both on the standardbred and the thoroughbred side.
Yeah, certainly it's complicated on the thoroughbred side because of some of the races we will miss and how to reschedule them and what we do with stakes purses. A little more straightforward at Mohawk in the sense that we will delay those. We will simply delay those races. We won't have missed a lot officially in terms of the races. I think obviously the NA Cup is the big one, and that will be moved back, and we're working on that now. But we should be okay in terms of how we're looking at the stakes programs. We're not anticipating big changes to the stakes program at Mohawk. We've got a bigger challenge on the thoroughbred side, just because of the Triple Crown and the Triple Tiara, the way we've set it up. But the race offices are now back and working and rolling up their sleeves, and we're hoping in the next couple of weeks here to come up with qualifying sheets and conditions for racing, and the same on the thoroughbred side. Hopefully a condition book and stakes races out by May 15th or 16th. That's the timing we're projecting. But the difficult part, of course, is whether we will be able to start racing in early June or mid-June, and that. So we're just going to have to play it day by day till then, Greg, in terms of putting out official dates for these things.
Sure. One of the things that you implemented that certainly gave horse people some short-term relief, no question, was the waiving of the April stakes payments. And how do things look after doing that? Will there be much impact to the stakes program?
No, we discussed this yesterday, and I think that it was the right thing to do. We felt, and it's not going to have an impact on the purses per se. So I don't think. I don't know exactly how Mr. McClinchy is going to manage his purses in that regard, but I think it's. I was assured it would be immaterial, and as originally we had deferred it, and we felt in the communique to the industry today, the right thing to do was to waive those payments altogether. And of course, we are hopefully on schedule for the May 15th payments.
In order to start back in early June, protocols are certainly going to have to be in place. It's not going to look like it did 6 months ago. What is racing going to look like, in your opinion, for both horse people and spectators? They won't be on track, but those tuning in when racing does resume.
Well, I guess from my side of it, I think the first and foremost thing that we have to keep ourselves distanced and follow the protocol that's passed down from the government, and we did a good job at that the last couple of days. We only had 2 days of it, and we were getting better each day at it. And we had so many people in the paddock, but I think that'll all work. I mean, we were very careful. I haven't heard one case of of the virus in the horse business. And as far as people in the stands, most of our betting is on TV now. So I know that the food and beverage and stuff is going to take a real licking at every place. But I think as long as if the handle can triple or double, maybe it'll make up for a little bit of some of that loss. I think that'd be up to Jim because he explained that part of it. But
Sure.
Yeah, explain and hope. Bill's right. We learned a lot on March the 16th, and as you could see from those days, what we learned on March 16th, we tried to implement on March the 19th, and I think racing will, when we come back to Mohawk in June, that will be that much further ahead with having had the benefit of those 2 days and what we've learned in the interim. I do not expect spectators for the foreseeable future. I'd hate to put a date on that. I think it's always a possibility that, and by way of example, that maybe in July or August we can have physical distancing for some owners and press and maybe some spectators. Don't know exactly how that's going to work yet, but we'll definitely be in a period, I hope, where we're letting some spectators in at some point with again physical distancing guidelines in place. So we'll be able to manage that. The good news is we have lots of space and lots of property to work with. As far as the wagering, it's going to be a challenge. Bill's right. It'd be nice to be the only game in town, and we've got a shot at it on the standardbred side if we can get going early enough. One of the things that we need to spend a lot of time marketing and working on is getting people to convert to the HPI system, because that's the system that's going to benefit us and where we derive our income from. And so that's a transition. As it is today, we have 65 Champions Lounges across the province, and many of those Champions Lounges, which produce substantial handle, they may not be open for a period. And of course, our simulcast at Mohawk in itself, and at all the other racetracks for that matter, those represent in effect OTB or Champions Lounges too, the way we look at it. And so if places aren't open and the bars and restaurants aren't open where their Champions Lounges are, we're going to have to do a good job of converting people to HPI in order to hope to move that handle up and take advantage, like Bill says, of being the only game in town for a while. And it's going to take some work to get people converted onto HPI.
And Jim, Woodbine Entertainment has long had a great relationship with many of the major broadcasters in Ontario and in Toronto. Is there an opportunity there as well, especially if the other major sports aren't online before racing returns?
Well, we're hoping. We had a good conversation with TSN yesterday. We've had numerous conversations, but it moved ahead. They're certainly interested in our product. The trick, again, is going to be getting out ahead of some of these other sports in terms of their interest. And in particular, I think we can all envision that at some point NHL playoffs might come back, Major League Baseball, which I don't think is a TSN product. I think it's a Rogers product, but certainly they carry their fair share of NHL hockey and NBA playoffs too. And so we'll, in terms of prime time, we want to get out ahead of that if we can, and do a upgraded production to some extent. We think there's an opportunity to attract new fans to racing, and if we can get on TSN1 for a primetime show once a week even, it would be great. They may take more product on other networks. We're just getting going with discussions now, but the focus is getting a quality show in place, a primetime show, and our opportunity to do that, as I said, maybe to get ahead of those other major league sports that may be coming online in June also.
But I certainly agree with you, Jim, that the push really has to be the HPI platform where you're getting new viewers, but you're getting wagering dollars flowing through there as well. In terms of logistics, maybe we'll throw this back to Bill. Uh, One of the things that's certainly going to affect the standardbreds in the return is being out of action for 2 months and under the current rules of racing, having to requalify. What's happening on that front? Have you talked to the regulator to see if there's anything that can be done on that?
Yeah, we've had a couple meetings on that, maybe three, I guess, but we had one this morning, and it was pretty productive. I think we've asked to waive the qualifying rule back from any horse that was qualified from February 1st until whenever, like Jim said, early June. That we'll be able to race on the stand. This is on the just only standardbred side, and there was a couple other things that were kicked around a little bit, but I think if we did that, I've talked to numerous trainers, and they're all trained and they're ready to go. Their horses, they all turned them out for a couple of weeks. They brought them back. They started training them, and they're all training like fast miles once a week, like you normally would, and they'd probably be fitter now than they would be if you were just racing them right off the hop. I think they'd have a whole lot more miles and a lot more bottom in them. But I think it'd be good. And there was a concern maybe about the handicappers, and the handicappers are a little bit like horse people. They're not always happy all the time. But and racetrack operators maybe a different in that sense too. But it'll be fine. I mean, there was concerns about, well, maybe they won't bet the first week. My contention is, if we were betting $2 million on a Saturday night at Mohawk, they might bet 2.5, but the next week they might bet 5, maybe. But I'd bet dollar to donuts that they'll bet. People are starving to bet. They're starving for something to do. How many 1993 Blue Jay games can you watch here the last 6 weeks or 7 weeks? So, in Earl Leaf, they haven't got back to 67 yet, but they're working back there. But,
yeah.
But
or Bill O'Donnell replays from 1985.
Falling down.
A lot of those, yeah.
So we're working. I can say that the AGCO, and Bill will attest to that, the AGCO has been cooperative and trying to help. So it needs to be addressed. I think we are planning on having a qualifying schedule in any event. I think Bill's exactly right, is where it should go. We won't be able to handle all the qualifiers at Mohawk for the various racetracks that are opening. So I think racetracks who are planning and setting commencement dates, whenever they may be, they need to be up and ready to go for training and qualifying a couple of weeks ahead of time. I think that's going to be important because there'll be some requirements for qualifying. Hopefully, as Bill said, they're eased, but I think the racetracks should all plan, including Mohawk, on being open for qualifying a couple of weeks ahead of time to ensure that we can all get off to a good start.
Yeah. Any correlation, Jim, at Woodbine between a start date for the thoroughbreds and the standardbreds?
No, it's come up many times, and the original wisdom on it was that the thoroughbreds would just not be ready as prepared to race as the standardbreds. In large part, the obvious is that as Bill said, the training centers and the surrounding Milton area are going full tilt, and the horses are in good shape. And there's a concern that the thoroughbreds would take more time. We've had assurances of late, especially if we start with a 2-day weekend on the thoroughbred side, that we've got enough horses that will be ready to race in 3 weeks or a month's time, that we could race at the same time as the standardbreds. Let me put it that way. So the idea is that we'd start fairly closely. Originally, as I said, I thought the standardbreds would get off the mark quicker, but it appears now that if the government's going to let us go ahead and get live racing going, that we'll be able to proceed both at Woodbine and at Mohawk.
And I apologize, I'm going to jump around here a little bit. There's a lot to cover, but going back to the potential of starting racing, the Ford government has outlined a 3-stage plan for reopening the economy, and they've already started that, but we're not officially in the first phase. Where do you see racing, like on that, as far as those 3 phases of reopening? Where do you see racing fitting? And I think a lot of people wonder, we're like a lot of businesses, we're trying to get through to government to tell them our story, why we can get going sooner than everybody else. And how has that line of communication been with government from your perspective?
Well, it's been good. I mean, as you can imagine, I think the Minister of Finance office in particular, I expect they've been inundated with letters. And in fact, I sent them a lengthy one last weekend. But listen, they have their priorities and they've got a lot on their plate. I think what we're particularly interested in doing, and shows like this help, and getting on the radio and getting in the newspaper. And because believe me, one thing I've learned in the last year or 2 years is that government listens, and they do read what's going on. They do hear what's going on in the press. And most importantly, Greg, the idea is to ensure that we're on the radar screen, that we don't get caught in some language that would prohibit us from proceeding. We think we can operate as well as any business, and probably better with, and I say better only in this sense, we are very prepared. That's not to say anything about other businesses, but what I can tell you is we've been at this a long time now. We've had to be extremely careful on the Woodbine backstretch to handle 600 or 700 people arriving there every day between 6 a.m. and 11 a.m. And we haven't had a case of COVID. Now, we may well get a case, and I'm surprised we haven't. But we've learned a lot. And when the City of Toronto inspection people came at the end of last week to go through our protocols and see what we've been doing and how we've been handling physical distancing, we have a physical distancing security patrol that walks through the backstretch. And so we have learned a lot, and we think we're ahead of other businesses because effectively we've had to operate a horse business now for a couple of months now to make sure the livestock is well looked after. And I'm sure the standard bred training centers in the Milton area have similarly put good protocols and physical distancing procedures in place because they have a good record. So I think that it's important that government understands that. They have a lot on their plate, but we want to make sure that they understand we're ready to go. We're confident in the protocols we have in place, and very importantly, this industry supports 20,000 plus people out there, and these people need live racing to get going and need purse money to get going. I mean, it's been great what's gone on, as we talked at the start with the relief fund, but that is set to expire at the end of May. We're not sure exactly where that will go, and we can discuss that further. But it's really important for people's livelihoods and in the agricultural sector that this business gets going, and it can and should get going.
Again, speaking with Jim Lawson, CEO of the Woodbine Entertainment Group, Bill O'Donnell, the president of COSA. We're going to get to our poll question again in just a moment, but before that, we'll take a quick break as well following that. But just before that, one follow-up item, Jim, and we talked a little bit earlier today. Just your thoughts on you've got another entity there to be concerned about at Woodbine. You're the landlord to the only casino in Toronto. And, it's a big part of the equation for you guys. And that is totally shut down. What's the impact potentially of that as things go farther along?
Yeah. Well, in the short term, I don't think it's that important to us, and we're very lucky and fortunate as an industry in this province that we are able to proceed, and there will be purse monies there, and that's the way the funding agreement for the province has been set up. It gives us industry stability in for years to come, and we will feel the benefit of that right now when we feel comfortable that we can go ahead and offer live racing and offer purses at the level that we're able to offer them. And that's quite distinct from what might go on in other provinces where the purses are dependent. Alberta is a good example where they're somewhat dependent on the revenue from the casino in order to pay their purses. So I'm not sure exactly what the economics are in Alberta, but that's a good example of a distinction of why we're in a fortunate position. Now, two other points on that, Greg. One, going forward, we are dependent to some extent at Woodbine and Mohawk on the success in the gaming revenue, and we're going to feel that in the future in terms of the amount of revenue that we take in. So it is going to have an impact longer term in terms of the cash flow at Woodbine and the cash flow at Mohawk. And then secondly, the other point is we have a large group of staff at both places that are dependent on food and beverage service to the casino at Woodbine and at Mohawk, and that's not a good situation for our employees, and it's troublesome for me personally, and hoping that casinos can get up and running sooner rather than later, because our people need to work, and it's hard for them to work if we don't have any food and beverage operations. In particular, a large part of our food and beverage is working with the casino operators at both properties. So it impacts us a lot. We won't necessarily wait for the casinos to possibly add some services, Greg. The casinos have physical distancing issues that we may not have, in terms of my earlier example of having owners in the stands or other people in the stands. That's a little harder when you're at a blackjack table, and so it makes it more difficult for the casinos to put physical distancing protocols in place. So we'll wait and see. We're working closely with them and cooperatively with them, and I do hope they get going sooner rather than later.
Okay, well, before we take a quick commercial break, we will have another look at our poll question. And we showed this off the top, and we want to hear from you. Give us your answer in the comment section if you're tuning in tonight, wanting to know how likely you think the return of live racing will be in the province this June. Very likely, a 50-50 proposition, or not likely. Have your say, and we'll recap the results at the end of the show. We'll take a quick commercial break and be back with more with Jim Lawson and Bill O'Donnell in a moment.
COSA, the Central Ontario Standardbred Association, proudly serving Ontario horse people with integrity and accountability. Collaborative, supportive, helping to ensure a vibrant harness racing industry. Lifetime membership is free, and there are many benefits. Become a new member today. COSA, representing the interests of horse people racing at Ontario racetracks. To find out more, visit cosaonline.com.
All right, thank you. And again, we are joined by Jim Lawson and Bill O'Donnell, and we thank them for taking some time out of their busy schedules to join us once again tonight. And Jim, to pick up on what we've been talking about tonight, obviously a situation none of us wanted to be in. It's a dire situation economically all over the world. But if you want to try and look out a little bit and be optimistic, do you think there's some opportunities here for racing going forward?
Well, yeah, I always want to be optimistic, and I'll try and give you the reasons I am optimistic. One of the things that I know we've done right is invested heavily in technology and innovation at Woodbine. Woodbine is the engine for the racing industry in Ontario, and everyone is benefiting from the technology, the quality of our broadcast, our simulcasting product, and I think that puts us in good shape. We hear all the time that that the quality of our product encourages wagering. And as we look at the challenges of the new world, not only in terms of the short-term challenges, but the challenges in terms of the new consumer that marketing experts tell you about. The new consumer has a shorter attention span, and they want to they want to see highlights, they want to consume the product on the phone. The good news is for racing in Ontario that we have invested heavily in technology and innovation, and that's a positive. I'm not sure this is necessarily a positive, but I think that we're going to continue to see some consolidation in the industry. You can see that as a positive or a negative, but the good news is that Ontario is a place where people like racing. We do a good job at it, and that we should have the ability to attract more horses. And so that's a positive. I think Woodbine and Mohawk Park are becoming clear leaders, and we're working hard to establish that reputation relative to our U.S. competitors. And I think that's a positive for me. I think people who are looking at the future of this industry, and particularly the standardbred industry in this province, we are setting up a platform from a technology standpoint, an innovation standpoint. The facilities we have are great, and I think that leads to long-term stability. And it's all about the brand and people's faith in the product. If they don't trust your product, they're not going to wager on the product. And if they're not going to wager, then you're not going to have any revenue. So I'm optimistic. I'm glad that we've taken the investment steps we've taken. We have a very good management team that is building our brand, not only in Canada, but across the world. So I think we're in good shape, Greg.
Bill, did you ever think you would see the day we'd be here talking about our competitive advantage being the fact that we don't need people in the stands necessarily to get our product out there to customers and see wagering? Hopefully, the numbers that would double or triple what we're normally doing. And as an industry over the years, we've kind of beat ourselves up in the fact that attendance has declined on track, but it's just become such a hyper-competitive marketplace out there that as you look at it now, in a strange way, it could work out in racing's favor.
Well, I think I've come to the realization back in the '80s that it was tough to keep people in the stands. Like when they changed the tax laws when I was racing in New Jersey, interest for racing, for whatever reason, did lose a lot of it, right? A lot of interest. So I've been not a tech guy, but I believe that all this online stuff and the platforms and whatnot, there's a future. I mean, we got nice big grandstands there, and they're tough to maintain anymore, and you don't have a lot of people in them. And but with Woodbine, with what they're doing with the HPI stuff, I mean, it's grown so much over the last 10, 12 years. Even with the loss of the slots, it's come back up. I think with as far as the outlets and stuff. I mean, they went. I think you were down to like 20 at one time, Jim. Weren't you? Or 30, and now you're back up to about 60. And they're tellerless. I think they're cheaper to operate as far as like the man labor, and he's running a business. He's got to try to trying to get everything he can out of what he's got, and they put it back into racing. So we're very fortunate that way that we have a partner like that, and they're not all like that, and it's unfortunate they're not, but we're in pretty good shape as well as Western Fair is the same way. The Ag Society, that's what they do. They race horses, and we're very fortunate to have people like that.
Well, we talk about some of the opportunities, Jim, and you have spearheaded one project in particular that has garnered a lot of interest of late, and a joint submission was put forward by Woodbine Entertainment, Ontario Racing and Racetracks of Canada to the federal government on historical racing. First of all, for those who maybe don't know what historical racing is, or aren't familiar with what it's all about, maybe give a bit of a background on that.
Well, historical horse racing is effectively using a huge database of historical horse races to wager on. As I'm looking at the screen, I mean, it has manifested itself in a number of states as something that looks and feels like a slot machine. That's not where we want to take it at Woodbine. We want it to look and feel like a horse race, and so that was one of the early criticisms of the historical horse racing product, is that it was just another way of running a slot machine. We believe that it is a pari-mutuel product. It's based on horse racing. The wagering that we would conduct on it would be pari-mutuel. There's no reason that we shouldn't have this product generally in Canada. It has been kept out, and it's largely been kept out because of some technical wording in our criminal code, which really would dictate that a bet is on a future event, and so that would mean that we could not have a pari-mutuel wager on a historic event or a horse race that's already been run. So our idea is that we will bring this database. We have the product ready. We will bring this database of hundreds of thousands of races onto HPI, and people could wager on a horse race. It would be random, but it would be wagering on a horse race, and maybe some people do better that way by picking colors or whatever they need to do. But that's the idea. We are in a position not only in the short term, but as I've described, maybe for the near term, because of our food and beverage, because of the conversion to HPI, because of growing competition, a whole lot of reasons that this industry needs more revenue. And our push right now with the federal government and through the Ministry of Agriculture, hopefully to the Justice Department, is this is a change that is warranted. It goes on in other horse racing jurisdictions in the United States for the benefit of the horse racing community, and there's no reason we shouldn't have it here. We would be heavily regulated. I think that's important to remember. This is not just a change to the criminal code that would open up an activity. This would open up an activity that will be heavily regulated by the Canadian Pari-Mutuel Association, and they will do a good job regulating it. And so we think it's very appropriate and overdue. We've been working at this for years, and we think now is the right time to move it forward. And hopefully we're going to get people in Ottawa to understand that it's necessary to help this business.
That was going to be my next question. Is this something that you've tested extensively? I mean, how quickly could you have something like this up and running in the format that you're hoping to?
Well, we could have it up and running very quickly. I don't know whether I'd say a week or 2 weeks. The real issue will be to make sure and that it's properly regulated. So the Canadian Pari-Mutuel Association, as the regulator for this type of product, they may take a month or 2 months. I'm not sure. Hopefully, more in the area of 1 month or 2 months than 4 months. But that would be the big obstacle, and we understand that it has to be regulated. We're a heavily regulated business, and this product, of course, would have to be regulated. So that would be the process that we would have to go through with government to make sure that the proper regulations apply to it.
And being that Racetracks of Canada is a part of this, how would the revenue, or how would you see things flowing back to the industry once up and running?
Well, I think Ontario's a little more straightforward because the way we're looking at it, it would go into the pot to benefit all of Ontario racing. That's the the way, and as Bill would understand, that's the way that the wagering works in this province. So any revenue we can produce is a good thing for the industry, whether that's support for new products, whether that's support for purses. We just generally need support for this industry. One thing that always strikes me that I know some people appreciate, that is, as wonderful as this funding agreement is, it doesn't have an inflation kicker in it. And so the amount of funding under that funding agreement is fixed, and we need to find ways to generate additional revenue over the next 15 to 20 years. And that's why this type of product is very important. Our participation in fixed odds wagering and sports wagering is important. That's why Woodbine has been aggressively looking at developing its property to add revenue. At the end of the day, any revenue that Woodbine Entertainment earns goes back into horse racing, and it concerns me today that that funding agreement doesn't have any escalation in it, and we want to make sure that we can find additional sources of revenue to help grow this industry. And so it is products like this, historical horse racing, that are going to give us some help in regards to creating some additional revenue. And we can't stop there. We have to continue to look at ways to participate in sports wagering or fixed odds wagering on horse racing and other revenue sources to ensure we continue to see some growth in the purses.
And Bill, I'll maybe pick up on that point with you. The long-term funding agreement really has brought stability to the industry. It gives you that base to work from. If there's been one criticism, though, from horse people, I think Jim touched on it, the fact that there's nothing built in there for inflation. People see it as no opportunity to grow. So obviously you guys are quite supportive of initiatives like this to try and find those new revenue streams.
Yeah, I think we are, Greg. That was the lack of, building inflationary percentage in it was not for the lack of trying on everybody's part. Actually, I mean, Jim can attest to that. We all did that, tried that forever. It wasn't as much in negotiation. It was, here it is, basically at the end. So we tried, and they tried their best too, and they did the best they could, I guess. So, but go down the road, and initiatives like this, we have to reinvent ourselves in one respect, I guess, right? So where we had the slot money from before, so maybe we could have something within our own, the CPMA guidelines to make us go forward. And it's going to be a tough call and tough job, but they're working on it. That's all we can ask for. And historic races, I was in Panama a number of years ago, and they raced there once a week, and they had virtual races on Wednesday and the real live races on Saturday. The difference, and they looked like Shrek cartoons on Wednesday, and the bet was only off like 20% less on the virtual day than it was on the real day. So, and I'm sure their expenses were a whole lot cheaper, right? Other than the cartoonists. So, if you can do that, you can do it, right?
A lot of great ideas.
Hey?
Yeah, a lot of great ideas out there, and we've got a question now on that same vein. Our first question of the night coming from Randy Zock. Thank you, Randy. Here's a good one. Why don't we have a lottery type wager like the V75 in Sweden, where the whole province or even country bets on 10 future Saturday night races? And Jim, I'll direct this to you. I'm sure this is something that has been discussed at your level, or maybe I'm wrong. Has it?
Oh, you're
has
certainly
it been
not wrong. Like and Randy's very astute. Listen, we that negotiation of the funding agreement, took place over years, and there were many times where we had, when we were trying to calculate the economics of the industry for the province, there was definitely going to be a shortfall. The way that the slot revenue was replaced with ultimately the funding agreement. But there were interim steps through 2015, 2016, And much of the discussion in that 2015 and 2016 was about how are we going to do this? How are we going to have any growth? Where is the additional revenue going to come from? And this was, this specific one, actually, the Swedish example was specifically on the list, along with fixed odds, along with historical horse racing, along with participation in casinos. I mean, we have and still have a list of 15 or 20 ways that we as an industry can and should be participating. Things like the lottery that Randy suggested, ProLine, moving a racing product into as part of a ProLine product once a week, and sharing some of the revenue of ProLine for that reason. And there are lots of ways. If we could have access even to the retail distribution network for the horse racing product that ProLine is in today, and that the lotto tickets are in today, there are lots of ideas like this. So 100%, we have gone down that road. We haven't had success. I think we're going to continue to work at this, because I do think the land-based gaming, quite frankly, which are the bricks and mortar casinos and the online gaming at OLG, I think those are matters that, quite frankly, are going to have to be revisited. And I hope and think that Woodbine Entertainment, as a trusted partner with great technology, that there's a role that we can play in online gaming or lotteries and the like, because we have proven that we have the technology, we have the infrastructure, the financial infrastructure, the marketing infrastructure, and certainly the technology infrastructure to play a role. And we're very heavily regulated, and we have a good relationship with the regulator in Ontario. So I'm hoping some of these ideas can move forward as the OLG and finance looks at bricks and mortar gaming and online gaming over the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, because I think there will be a pause and maybe a revisitation, partly as a result of this COVID crisis, Greg, that I'm hoping there's a window there that we can squeak through to hold up our hands and say, listen, we've got the capability. We've got 25,000 people in this province that we need to help and support and grow this business. And let's hope we can play a role that way.
And I know you have a great relationship with OLG. Back in 2013, when Slots at Racetracks, the program came to an end, the government of the day talked about integration between gaming and horse racing. And here we are some 7, 8 years later, and still trying to push these things forward. Has that been a frustration for you?
Yeah, no question. I'm not sure our relationship has dramatically improved since 2013, but it's been frustrating. It's interesting that you would raise that term integration, because that was the one term out of my mouth about every day for a couple of years on end. And where is the integration? We were promised integration. Listen, the OLG's been good. We have a good partnership with them, and this is a difficult business, in fairness, and I would say they're well up the learning curve now in understanding our business and working with us and cooperating with us, and it's overdue that ideas like the lottery and having us participate in online gaming and possibly sports betting. I think that hopefully the partnership and the good relationship we've formed will lead us to that holy grail of integration, which we've been talking about, as you said, since 2013. And I'm optimistic that we can play a role, and we won't let them down. We do a good job at it.
Yeah, I agree. We have another question coming in, this time from Anthony McDonald, I believe. Anthony wondering, will some of the B tracks be opening as Mohawk does? And we did talk about it a little bit earlier. Without that happening, won't the Mohawk box be flooded with horses? Getting back's important, but if we can't get them in, we are still in Park. A pretty good point. Not sure if you can really answer that definitively at this point, Bill, but I'll maybe send that your way.
I think, I don't know if Anthony was on there before when I said that each track is sent in like a proposal to OR that's going to be passed on to the OLG or the powers to be to race, and they all express interest to race. Now, if some of the B tracks or the summer tracks, Hanover, Clinton's, Dresden, Leamington, Sarnia, Kawartha Downs, if they're going to lose, if we get back racing in July or August and they're going to lose half of their race dates and stuff, is it worth their while? I don't know. That's an answer for them or a question for them. But we're trying to do, first of all, we don't know when we're going to be up. So that'll be the question there. And I think I don't know who's left to race. The Georgian Downs, do they want to race in June? Well, I'm sure they would, right? So we got, 2 tracks that I'm sure, and they've all, like I said, they've all sent in their proposals, what they were doing, and they have to abide by the local health departments, and they have to abide by whatever the province sends down. So that's a tough question to answer, to be positive, really, but or negative.
Yeah, I have a question then, just a follow-up question, Bill, to you. I'm asking this very curiously. Will the inability to bring spectators to some of those tracks, will it impact their thinking on whether they want to open? I don't know. I'm asking that maybe naively, but I'm just curious. I know at Mohawk with the power of and everyone has access to HPI, but I'm just curious in terms of the motivations of racetracks. Will there be some that will have a tougher time starting without spectators? I'm just curious. I ask that of you with not any knowledge or view on that.
In my opinion, I think it would, especially the summertime tracks. They're fan-based tracks. They don't have a lot of betting, through the HBI and online and stuff. So I would say so. The Georgian Downs, it's going to race a couple of 3 days a week versus maybe a Hanover, Clinton that races once, or Leamington once a week or something. It's tough, and if the protocols that are passed down from the government or the municipal government, even, what do you have to do? The distancing. We're lucky, at Western Fair and Mohawk and even Georgia, to a sense, we have a big enough building that we can keep people apart. But some of them don't. They just don't have the room and stuff. So, and at what cost? If they're adding a whole bunch more costs onto their racing day, and they get paid for racing each day, but how much profit in that, I have no idea. But if they're going to cut into that and even cut into taking money out of their pocket to race, it's going to be tough. It's going to be a decision for each individual racetrack, I think.
To follow up on that, like you said, it's really hard to answer that tonight, but will there be a timeline on when we're going to have to find out from tracks if they're in or out, more or less, for the summer?
I think once we're given a date that yes, we can go back to racing, if you follow this, and this, it's going to be an answer from those tracks. Well, we can't do it. We can or we can't. I think it's probably that simple, right? At the end, we can't afford to do it. It's not worth our while or whatever. So, and if that happens, I know we've been told in the past, and I'm sure it still stays today, that if any racetrack doesn't race, can we use that purse money for another racetrack? Can we transfer it? And the answer has always been yes. So would we lose race dates? Hopefully not. We lose racetracks? Hopefully not too. But if we do, there's a little bit of a plan in place there that can take care of some of that.
All right. And I think Anthony had another follow-up question, and actually it leads us into our next topic nicely. He was asking about Darkhorse, which is something that Woodbine Entertainment has also been working on for several years. And maybe we'll just get a quick look at a commercial promo that they've done, and we'll talk to Jim more about that in a second. So looking at Darkhorse, it's obviously a racing app. It looks very intriguing. Jim, can you tell us what it's all about?
Well, it's really at the new consumer, the new customer that I alluded to earlier. What makes it such a fascinating product, in my view, is the artificial intelligence that it uses to calculate a wager, and it helps at any level, but it particularly helps the neophyte wagerer who can go in and get advice on how to bet on a particular race from the artificial intelligence app. And it's we've tested it twice now on a beta testing, and the win rate is really very, very strong. In my experience from using it, and you don't have to do it this way, but it calculates multiple bets on one race, and so it's not the way most people wager and most sophisticated people wager that are heavy wagers. It's a really fun product that produces a very high winning percentage. That doesn't necessarily mean there is profit. There is a profit percentage, but there's a very high win percentage. So people are constantly winning and having fun, and it will be an app where you can watch races live and use artificial intelligence to bet, and it's really exciting. It is best we can tell. There's no other product like it, certainly in North America, that we're aware of. Others have tried, and building in this artificial intelligence, simply put, puts the new wager on an equal playing ground with the electronic wagers that we know exist out there. And so we're really excited about it. And I think, as I said earlier today with our employees, I said this is something that I hope works not only for Woodbine Entertainment, but for the entire horse racing industry, because I think it has the opportunity, if it catches on, to be popular to a whole new generation of fans that can look on their phone and have some fun betting races every few minutes and winning some money, and they'll have a blast with it. It's a good product.
Right. And what's the next step for Darkhorse at this point?
Well, we're about to go into a soft launch. We're comfortable that we've taken all the kinks out of it. There may be some more as we start to introduce it to the public, which we're planning on doing about the third week of this month, what we'll call a soft launch, then a firm launch. Initially, it will relate to thoroughbred racing. We had hoped during this period to beta test it on standardbred products, but there hasn't been any standardbred racing. So that's created its own unique challenge to launching this with the standardbred paddock at Mohawk, which was our hope. But hopefully we'll get that underway too, with a firm launch and marketing beginning in or around June the 1st. In any event, a couple of weeks from a marketing launch before we start live racing, and we'll have that hard launch concurrent with the opening of our own live racing product.
Well, it sounds very exciting. We're looking forward to seeing more of it. I think I saw it in the first beta test phase. So, yeah, looking forward to seeing how it's developed, and it sounds very exciting. I think we'll have another look at our poll question, Curtis, just to remind people, and be interesting to see whether what Jim and Bill have had to say tonight will sway you one way or the other, but wondering how likely you think it is racing will return in the province this June. Very likely, a 50-50 proposition, or not likely. And again, leave your answers for us in the comments section, and we will recap that question and tell you the results at the end of the show tonight. So talking about some of the exciting initiatives, certainly that Jim's team has been working on and doing a lot of the heavy lifting for the industry, and it's certainly well appreciated and exciting when you look forward and think about the prospects for the industry, and especially in the area of technology. Bill, from the COSA side of things, I wanted to ask you a little bit about some of the initiatives you guys have been doing. You've been getting a lot of attention, marketing, trailer wraps that we're going to see hopefully on the highways of Ontario very soon. COSA TV, another thing. Just some of the many marketing initiatives you've been doing. Tell us about the genesis of that, and why COSA has really ramped up this aspect of what they're doing.
Well, I guess the first reason why we ramped it up, we got some marketing money. We never had that. It's called SRA money. It's part of the pari-mutuel tax reduction that was formed years ago or given back. And there was a pool of money that two associations thought they had right to, and we kind of argued over it and fought over it for many years, and it was resolved last April. And it sat with Woodbine for 10 years, drawn interest, and it built up. It built up quite a bit, for over that period of years. So it's about it's 1% of the horses, the money bet in Ontario, and it's broke down that the 10% of that 1% is called SRA. So that's a standard bid revenue allocation for marketing. So that money, we had quite a pool of it. So we sat down as the directors at COSA and said, what should we do with this? How should we work it? So we took the amount of money and invested in very small interest, which was pretty safe. It is quite safe. And so we kind of spread it over 10 years. How much could we spend every year? So we have an X amount of dollars to do that with, and said, what do we do with it? Well, what do we do with it? So we come up with a whole bunch of ideas, and we spend a little here and a little there. And so then we come up with the idea of maybe getting a billboard. Well, couldn't do that. They wouldn't let us do that in the 401 corridor. So they had to be 1,000 feet off the road. Well, we had to have a spyglass to see it probably at that point. They wouldn't let put lights, all that stuff. But anyway, that one. And then all of a sudden we started thinking about, magnets on trucks. I got a bunch of those made. And then we said, what about these trucks that advertise on the side of the truck? So we started to look into that, and that's how it blossomed from there. So we offered it to any member of COSA, and we've had 60 some people now that have asked, and we're working on it all the time. This has kind of slowed us down, as Kathy was doing all that before this, but she's still been doing some of it every night after. She's got nothing to do between 1 and 8 in the morning here lately, or neither one of us, but it keeps her busy. So we've got around 30 she's got now on the road, which and they look pretty good. We get nothing but compliments for it. And on top of that, Adriano Sorello, he's in the marketing industry too, and he came to us with this. He did that Jimmy Freight thing, which was great. So I thought that was a good idea. And then he came and he pitched a scratch to win, which is going to be on the back of the trailers, and you hit that, and it takes you to. It wants your email address. Basically, that's what it does. We give away gifts, and you have to come to the track to pick them up. And hopefully, you'll stay and bet, and maybe give a dinner for 4 someplace and stuff like that. So that's soon to be. We're going to, I guess, soft touch that one, as you call it, Jim. Early too, with not racing stuff, because there's no racing stuff to give. But we got some other prizes. We're going to kind of get people, answer questions or whatever the case may be, the spin and wins or whatever. But the key there was getting people's email address. So when we have a North America Cup or a Camlock, you can just, blast that out to million people, hopefully, but whatever it may be. But anyway, make them aware. That's other than, taking a bus and a gun to get them out of their house. What else are you going to do? You got to just make them aware, and hopefully that's what they'll do. So that was a plan behind that. So it's marketing money that we're spending.
Yeah, and they look
Good.
Fantastic. You're right. They're getting tremendous feedback, and I understand you've even had interest from outside the province of Ontario. I
had a couple of guys from out west, one Edmonton, and another guy that he comes up here, ships horses once in a while, and we've had some here that go down there, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine as long as they're. And it's good that we got the bigger guys now. So Stacy's, they got 60 horses probably, and they have 3. I think that's their last one today. I think that's their last one. The one with Sean. They won. They have 3. They have the 2 boys in Clark or Mark. That Mark is on one, and Stacy's on or Sean's on the other, and Clark's on the other. So they have three. They're on the road all the time from here to Ottawa. Carmen Osceola, he's on the road day and night. He's here in the morning training at Mohawk, and he comes across the 407, 401, or wherever. And from the other end of the province, we've had Ted McDonnell. He's getting his done. Bob McIntosh has got a couple trailers. So by August, we should have every day. You should see a few of them on the road, right? So anyway, wherever they want to go, north, south, we don't care where they go, as long as they're on the road and somebody sees them. And everybody likes a horse, so.
Traveling billboards all over Ontario. Well done. And again, getting tremendous feedback on that initiative. We have another question, and we're getting close to getting ready to wrap up our show tonight. Again, thanking Bill O'Donnell and Jim Lawson for joining us. This one coming from Bill Bonenberger, wondering how the border closings affect Woodbine's ability to start live racing in June. Maybe a difficult one to answer, Jim, but certainly could have some impact.
Yeah, certainly. I believe it will have some impact, and of course, I'm trying to, in answering this, see if there's any whether you want me to distinguish between the two breeds in terms of Woodbine and then Mohawk. Let's deal with this as if it's a standardbred question, and it should be on COSA TV. But I would say that there's no trouble transporting horses up here. The good news is that we have very good trainers here. We have world drivers. There may be a problem getting people across the border, but I think if we're racing with the purse levels that we're offering, we're expecting that we'll be okay. Some people may be reluctant to ship up. I think, and I started this making a distinction between breeds. I think the thoroughbred guys are a little more reluctant to probably send horses up here without the trainer coming or without their exercise rider coming, and so that might be a bit more of a challenge. But I think that the Mohawk horse people have such great reputations that I think people will not hesitate to send their horses up here if we can get off to an early start. So I'm hoping the border is no issue at all. I think it might be a little bit more one on the thoroughbred side, quite frankly, but let's hope that we get going, and I don't think the border is going to be a big problem for getting horses up here.
All right. Well, I think, sorry, go ahead, Bill.
Well, today we just approved 2,938 horses that we have that are 3-year-olds and not of racing age. If there was a condition sheet out tomorrow for a couple of racetracks, I think you'd have full fields and a lot of also eligibles. And that's not counting our 2-year-olds. We probably got another close to 1,000 2-year-olds in the province. So the border, like Jim said about the standardbred people, they don't seem to have any qualms of having relationships with trainers sending horses up. And then some of our people that are in Florida that stayed there, a couple of them called me and said, "Should I come home?" I said, "For what? Can't do nothing here. At least you got good weather and you can go to the beach in the afternoon. You can do something or whatever you can do, but you can train your horses." And they even had qualifiers down there, at Southern Oaks and Sunshine Meadow. So they're when they came, like I know 2 different people, 2 different stables. One shipped their horses to New Jersey. They came home, quarantined for 2 weeks, brought their horses home. Now they're back to work, and the other one did it in Kentucky. Dropped them off in Kentucky, which was good. Came home, gave the horse a couple of weeks off, and just turned them out. Now they're back going too. So, and I'm sure you'll see more of that is now that, maybe there's light at the end of that long tunnel. Okay,
I think we have time for one more question before we wrap things up tonight. And this was coming from Aaron Waxman, wondering if we are able to open before most U.S. tracks, will preference be given to Ontario-owned and sired horses? Bill, do you want to tackle that one?
Well, that hasn't been discussed yet. I mean, I've heard lots of suggestions about that. Once we get a date together here and they come back racing. And in the past, that's been a no-no. You know, we're kind of welcoming everybody, but I don't think we're going to welcome a whole bunch of people that if they're not racing, like they said in New York, Pennsylvania, where it could be, that they're going to have a flood of horses come up here to, you know, our people sat around here also for a couple months, you know, not racing and not making any money. So I think that that'll have to be a discussion. And, you know, it happens in a lot of places that Ontario, like the Pennsylvania and stuff. And I know, I get it, that people would like to do that too, but I don't know if we'd have enough horses for that. So who knows? I mean, I probably would have. I mean, realistically, the amount of horses that are owned out of the province probably would be 15%, maybe. I suppose it might be a high number for the standardbred side.
And if that situation arose, likely, you know, an influx of horse people to Ontario just wouldn't be possible anyway, considering the situation, Jim, and with what's happening at the borders.
They could send horses, but they couldn't come themselves, and that wouldn't do us any good either.
Yeah, the other problem that people are going to have for a while is the self-quarantine, which maybe was implicit in my earlier comment, but I don't see that 14 days of self-quarantine going away for a while, and that's another problem as far as people coming up. So we'll see how it'll play out. Maybe a nice problem to have if we have too many horses, but let's wait and see where this all ends up. Hard to predict today.
Yeah, for sure. Well, listen, guys, I think we'll wrap it up there. We really appreciate you guys taking the time. As mentioned, you're tremendously busy gentlemen, and we really appreciate your forthcoming nature with us here tonight. Jim, we appreciate all the weekly updates that you've been doing and speaking to the media and trying to keep everybody updated as best you can. And Bill, same to you. So thanks again, guys, and we hope we can maybe do this one more time when we get a little more clarity and a little more certainty on when things will start back.
Yeah, love to do it again, and hopefully we'll have a chance for some real positive news next time we do it. But let's all keep doing the right thing, and I again want to thank everyone for being patient, and we'll get there. It's just how soon we get there. So thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. And here's one more look at our poll question. Let's see how the results shook out in our poll tonight. And, well, 67% of you are remaining very optimistic that we will see a return to some form of live racing this June.
Jim's very convincing. Jim's very convincing.
31% think it's 50-50, and only 2% think that it's unlikely we'll see racing in June. So that's great to see the optimism among the horse industry, and I share that optimism, frankly, and I think the gentlemen that joined us tonight do as well. I want to remind you as well of another fun promotion that's coming up this year between COSA and Trot Magazine, the 2020 COSA Fantasy Stable. And you can stop by the Standardbred Canada website to submit your fantasy stable. It's free to play. And a wonderful prize, the grand prize, is for a group of 25 for a night out at the beautiful VIP suite at Mohawk Park. Might be a while before we get to use that prize, but it's a wonderful one, and it'll be worth waiting for. I guarantee that. Thanks again, gentlemen, and we thank you for joining us tonight. We'll see you next time on COSA TV.
COSA, the Central Ontario Standardbred Association, proudly serving Ontario horse people with integrity and accountability. Collaborative, supportive, helping to ensure a vibrant harness racing industry. Lifetime membership is free, and there are many benefits. Become a new member today. COSA, representing the interests of horse people racing at Ontario racetracks. To find out more, visit cosaonline.com.